Chosen ones, the biggest spiritual powers that unlocks after age 30. There's something almost mystical that begins to shift after age 30, and most people don't even realize it. They think they're just aging, just getting more tired, more serious, more settled. But for the chosen ones, those who were born with a spiritual seed buried deep in the soul, this is the age when something ancient begins to stir, something divine, something powerful. It's subtle at first, a strange pull toward solitude, a disinterest in what used to excite you, a craving for silence, for depth, for truth. And it's not just a phase, it's a signal, a spiritual siren that says, now it's time to awaken. You see, before 30, life is often a whirlwind of identity building. We're chasing dreams, fitting in, proving ourselves. We're wearing masks we didn't even know we agreed to put on. But after 30, the soul starts pushing back. That's why so many people hit what we call a crisis around this age. But for the chosen ones, it's not a crisis. It's a spiritual initiation. The illusions begin to crack. The ego starts losing its grip, and your real self, the eternal self, starts to rise from the ashes of every false identity you were taught to wear.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
But let's go deeper. Why does this awakening begin after 30? Why not 20 or 40 or 70? Because 30 is where the spiritual threshold meets the biological maturity of the body and the soul's readiness to anchor into purpose. The brain has developed fully. The nervous system has been conditioned through enough experience. And the soul, if it's a chosen soul, has been waiting patiently for the vessel to be strong enough to carry what comes next. And what comes next? Powers. Not in the way Hollywood shows them, not flying or reading minds. Something much more real, much more useful, and much more intense. The first power that unlocks is spiritual vision. You begin to see through people, through conversations, through systems. You start noticing what's not being said. You hear the energy behind the words. You walk into a room and instantly feel what others are feeling, even if they don't speak a word. This is not just empathy. This is energetic vision, and you can't turn it off. That's why after 30, so many chosen ones start to lose interest in shallow connections. It's not that you're becoming cold, it's that your spirit is demanding truth. You can't fake it anymore. Your soul has zero tolerance for lies, even polite ones, and this clarity can be overwhelming at first. You'll question yourself. You'll wonder, am I becoming too sensitive? No, you're becoming awake. The second power is energetic boundaries. Before 30, you probably gave your energy away freely to friends, lovers, jobs, dreams that weren't even yours. But after 30, something shifts. You don't just want peace, you require it. You start feeling physical pain when you're around the wrong people. Your body rejects what your soul has outgrown. You start saying no. You start leaving rooms that don't respect your presence. And this isn't arrogance, it's alignment. Because the chosen ones are here for a mission, and that mission cannot be fulfilled while you're drained, distracted, or disrespected. Another power that emerges is time bending. This one is subtle, but it's real. After 30, many chosen ones notice that time begins to feel different. You might feel like a day stretches into eternity when you're doing something you love, or like entire weeks vanish when you're out of alignment. This isn't just perception, it's mastery. You begin to move outside the linear timeline. You start syncing with your soul's rhythm. You feel when it's time to act and when it's time to surrender. You start trusting divine timing, not rushing the process. And that's when synchronicity explodes in your life. The right people show up, messages arrive, coincidences become too powerful to ignore. You're not imagining it, you're tuning into the weave of reality. But here's the kicker: most people ignore these powers. They feel the shift, but they resist. They numb it with distraction. They call it a midlife crisis. They run back to comfort. But the chosen ones, we can't run. Not anymore. The veil is lifted, and once you see, you can't unsee. So the question becomes, what do you do with these powers? You refine them, you honor them, you train with them like sacred tools. You learn how to listen deeply to your intuition. You practice silence so you can hear your higher guidance. You begin to curate your environment like a temple, knowing that every sound, color, scent, and vibration is either feeding or draining your spirit. You stop tolerating chaos. You stop explaining your boundaries. You stop becoming unapologetically aligned. What most people don't understand is that after 30, life isn't about chasing, it's about channeling. You become a portal, a conduit for healing, for truth, for divine creativity. You start tapping into wisdom you never studied. Words flow through you. Ideas visit you in dreams. You wake up with clarity you didn't logically earn. That's the mystery. That's the mark of the chosen. You are no longer living from the world. You're living for something beyond it. And let me ask you something that only your soul can answer. What have you been feeling lately that you can't explain, but you know is real? What gift is trying to wake up in you that fear is still trying to keep asleep? That's your edge. That's where your next unlocking is waiting. What's coming next is even bigger. The rise of inner authority. Why chosen ones become unshakable after 30. There's a moment, quiet, unannounced, when something inside you clicks. Not because someone handed you a certificate, not because you earned a title, but because you finally realized you don't need the world's permission to be who you already are. That moment is the rise of inner authority, and for chosen ones, it almost always begins to crystallize after 30. It doesn't come from a loud celebration, it doesn't come with applause, it comes in the silence after being misunderstood one too many times. It comes in the stillness after losing people who never truly saw you. It comes when you've been knocked down enough times to realize that no one is coming to save you. And suddenly, you stop waiting. You rise. Inner authority isn't about arrogance. It's about embodiment. It's the quiet confidence that settles into your bones after you've lived enough life to know what's real and what's not. You stop second-guessing your intuition. You stop outsourcing your truth to other people's opinions. You start trusting what you feel, not because it's always logical, but because it's yours. And something sacred happens when a chosen one finally claims their voice. You become a frequency that cannot be manipulated. You become a presence that doesn't need validation to be felt. You become unshakable. Before 30, most of us are still building our sense of self based on external mirrors. What society says we should be, what our family expects, what our friends reward. But those mirrors are distorted, and eventually they crack. That's why so many of us hit a wall in our early 30s. It's not depression, it's disillusionment. It's the soul saying, enough. You've played the game long enough. It's time to remember who you are, and that remembering is not intellectual, it's energetic. You stop needing to be understood. That's one of the first signs. You realize that some people will never get you, and that no longer bothers you. You understand that your presence alone is disruptive, not because you're trying to be, but because truth always unsettles those still living in illusion. And instead of shrinking to make others comfortable, you begin to walk taller, you begin to speak slower, you begin to take up space, not with ego, but with essence. Because you finally know you belong here, not because someone told you so, but because your very breath is sacred proof. Let me ask you something deep, something few dare to confront. How much of your life have you spent trying to prove your worth to people who don't even know their own? How many times have you silenced your inner knowing to avoid rocking the boat, to keep the peace, to not be seen as too much? That silence was a cage. And every time you denied your truth, you handed your power away. But after 30, the soul gets louder. The cost of self-abandonment becomes too high, and one day you stop negotiating. You stop explaining your path to people who haven't walked it. You stop apologizing for your fire. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You claim your space. You own your choices. You embody your truth. And that embodiment creates a ripple. It changes how people respond to you. Not everyone will like it. Some will pull away. But others, the right ones, they will feel it. They will be drawn not to your image, but to your integrity. Because in a world full of noise, integrity is magnetic. This is where your real mission begins. Not when you learn more, not when you gather more credentials, but when you become the message, when your life becomes the teaching, when your energy walks into a room before your words do. That's when you start leading without trying. That's when you start shifting timelines simply by being in alignment. And that's why the world tries so hard to keep chosen ones distracted, divided, diluted, because when we remember who we are, we become impossible to control. Inner authority is knowing that your path won't always make sense to others and walking it anyway. It's knowing that your vision might scare people and holding it anyway. It's knowing that your power might trigger some and radiating it anyway, because the world doesn't need more people who conform. It needs more people who remember. And remembering is dangerous to the systems built on forgetting. So if you're in that sacred space after 30 where you feel the old layers falling away, let them. You're not losing yourself. You're losing what was never really you. And what's left, what rises, is the most powerful force on earth. A soul in full command of its light. Energy mastery and the magnetic field of purpose, the new law of attraction after 30. There's a secret that most people never unlock in their lifetime because they're too busy chasing to realize they were always meant to attract. But after 30, something begins to shift for the chosen ones. a new law of attraction emerges. Not the superficial version you've seen in books or movies, where thoughts alone manifest reality, but a deeper, more ancient truth. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And when you begin mastering your energy, when you start living fully aligned with your purpose, your very presence becomes magnetic. Not just metaphorically, literally. People, opportunities, visions, and miracles begin to orbit around you, drawn not to your appearance or effort, but to your frequency. Before 30, you may have tried to manifest using willpower. You wrote affirmations, made vision boards, recited mantras, and yes, maybe some things came to you, but they likely didn't last. Why? Because the foundation wasn't your energy, it was your desire. And desire alone without alignment cannot hold what is divinely yours. But after 30, if you've been walking the path of the chosen, your energy begins to stabilize. You've gone through enough ego deaths. You've released enough false identities. You've purified the noise. And now, your energy becomes a field of truth. That field is what starts attracting the life that was always meant for you. But this level of attraction isn't passive. It's not just sitting in meditation and waiting for the universe to deliver. It's about embodiment. Every day, you're either in resonance with your purpose or not. Every thought, every word, every choice is either reinforcing your soul's truth or leaking your power. Energy mastery means becoming ruthlessly honest with what you're holding. Is your heart open or armor? Is your mind clear or chaotic? Is your body a vessel or a battlefield? The spiritual magnetism of the chosen one after 30 is rooted in coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, actions, and environment all say the same thing, this is who I am. That's when people start saying things like, I don't know what it is about you, but I feel something around you. You'll walk into rooms and feel the energy shift. You'll speak, and people will listen, not because of volume, but because of vibration. You're no longer trying to impress. You're no longer selling yourself. You're simply radiating alignment. And in that state, the right people can't help but find you. The right moments can't help but unfold. The right life can't help but rise up to meet you. But here's the paradox. To reach this level of magnetic energy, you must let go of needing to attract anything at all. You stop chasing love and love finds you. You stop begging for recognition and your presence becomes undeniable. You stop seeking purpose and purpose begins living through you. This is not magic, this is frequency, and frequency doesn't lie. Let me ask you something few dare to consider. What are you still energetically entertaining that no longer matches the person you're becoming? Is it a relationship that drains you, a job that dishonors you, a habit that numbs you? Every time you say yes to what's misaligned, you distort your field, you confuse the signal. And when your signal is unclear, your manifestations become delayed, distorted, or denied. That's not punishment, that's physics. Energy doesn't respond to words, it responds to resonance. So how do you cultivate this magnetic field? It starts with radical responsibility. No more blaming, no more waiting, no more hoping someone else will rescue you. You become your own source. You clear the clutter from your space, your mind, your relationships. You eat like your body is a temple. You speak like your words create worlds, 'cause they do. You move through life like every step is a prayer, because when your life becomes a living ritual, the universe has no choice but to respond. And the beauty of this new law of attraction is that it doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to feel lost. What matters is your willingness to return, to remember, to realign, to recalibrate. The more you return to your center, the stronger your field becomes. And eventually you reach a point where you're no longer chasing anything outside of you. You're simply choosing what's already yours on a soul level, choosing what matches your frequency, choosing what feels like home. At this stage of the journey, after 30, you begin to realize that you're not attracting from the mind, you're attracting from the soul. And the soul doesn't want what's shiny, it wants what's true, what's eternal, what's encoded in your purpose. And when your energy field becomes a match for that truth, everything changes. Not instantly, not all at once, but inevitably. This is the power of the chosen ones who cross the threshold of 30 with awareness. They step into a new dimension of creation, a new way of living, not by force, but by frequency, not by hustle, but by harmony. Destiny activation, the final unlocks that only happen after 30. There comes a point, usually quietly, when your life stops being about survival and starts becoming about service. Not the kind of service that drains you, but the kind that fills you with such purpose that even your breath feels sacred. For chosen ones, this transition begins slowly after 30, but then accelerates, like a hidden code finally activated. You're no longer just a person with a spiritual side, you become a vessel of destiny, and everything in your life starts aligning with that call. This is the final unlocking. This is destiny activation. You start to see that everything that came before, every heartbreak, every failure, every moment of doubt, was not random. It was training. You were being sculpted, stripped of distractions, tested again and again until your soul became strong enough to carry your calling. And now you can feel it. It's not loud or flashy, it's a constant pulse beneath your skin, a voice that says, it's time. Time to stop playing small, time to stop hiding behind preparation, time to live what you came here to live. Destiny doesn't scream, it whispers, and only those who have walked through enough silence can hear it. That's why the path of the chosen one often feels lonely. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're being positioned. You're being pulled out of the noise so you can hear the deeper instructions. And once you start listening, really listening, you begin to move differently. You stop chasing meaning and you start becoming meaning. And after 30, your soul becomes less interested in potential and more committed to purpose. You no longer waste energy trying to be everything to everyone. You focus, you simplify, you sharpen. There's a clarity that begins to emerge and it becomes your compass. You can feel when you're off track. Your body tells you, your spirit tightens, you can't fake it anymore. And you don't want to, because alignment feels too good, it's too rich, too powerful. You realize that peace is not passive, it's precision. And when you're living in alignment, you become unstoppable. Destiny activation also brings a deep sense of urgency, not panic, but purpose, you feel time differently, not as a pressure, but as a sacred resource. You stop wasting it on drama, distractions, or dead-end paths. Every hour matters, every choice echoes. You begin to live like your life is a message, because it is. And suddenly, your days become infused with meaning. Even the mundane becomes magical, because you're no longer moving randomly, you're moving with divine intent. Let me ask you something. What have you been delaying that your soul is ready to begin? What dream have you buried under someday that's actually meant to start now? This is the moment where many chosen ones either rise fully or retreat back into comfort. But you didn't come this far to settle. You came to activate, to embody the version of you that your ancestors prayed for and your future self is calling toward. Destiny doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be present, to show up, to say yes, to trust the next step even when the staircase is invisible. Because once you take that step, the universe responds with momentum. Doors open, allies appear, resources flow. Not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. This is the final unlock. When you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "Who am I here to be?" Because when you become who you were always meant to be, what you're meant to do becomes obvious, natural, inevitable. And from that place, you don't just live life, you move through it like a wave of purpose. You speak, and people remember who they are. You walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere. You live, and others awaken. Because that's the true mark of the chosen ones, not that they're special, but that they remembered and they acted. Now that you're here, the only question left is, will you answer the call, or will you keep waiting for a sign that's already beating in your chest? You are the sign, you are the activation, and your time is now.